Hello and welcome to today's training where I'm going to teach you simple yet incredibly potent movements to fix tight and achy hips. I'm going to divide this training into three parts. First, we are going to identify whether you actually have issues with your hip joint, or whether it's actually just tight muscles around the hip. The second part is we're going to talk about mobility versus strength and what you need to do to fix your tight and achy hips. And then I'm going to teach you a few exercises and a really awesome routine that I have just put together. So it's literally hot off the press, and I'm going to teach you that at the end of the live. Okay, so first let's cover, I'm going to go back. Let's cover the hip area and whether you actually have issues with the hips. So mostly when people come to me with hip pain, they will be referring to pain around here, possibly pain around here, or in the lower back. What often happens also that if you have tight and achy hips, you also will be experiencing some pain in the knees. And often the pain starts migrating into the lower back and then going up into the upper back. So kind of the pain and the tension and the stiffness will spread. So how do you identify whether you have an actual hip joint pain or if it's just muscles? So if you have pain at the front here, that's not great news, because that is actually where your hip joint is. So if you are experiencing pain at the front, obviously on either side, then you probably need to go and see your doctor and have some x-rays or ultrasounds and investigate what is going on with your hip. If you have pain anywhere else, then that's great news, because that's just your muscles and you can absolutely fix that. Okay, so let's delve a little bit deeper into how do you fix your pain and aches and stiffness and tension around the hip. And if you're watching live, let me know who you are, where you're joining me from, and tell me a little bit more about your hips and what's giving you issues. So what do you need to do if you want to fix or never get hip issues again? You need to do two things. You need to do mobility. So mobility will restore the full range of motion in your hip joint, but it will also stretch the small stabilizing muscles around the hip joint. Now you have there's six big hip flexors that are helping you to move the hip, okay, in kind of all directions. I'm ruining my plant. Because we sit down so much in our modern lives, that's really tightening our hips and causing us a lot of issues in the hips and in the lower back. So first, you need to do mobility, and you need to do mobility daily. If you are sitting down for work, then you need to do even more mobility than people who are not. So ideally, first thing in the morning when you wake up, and then after your workday or during your workday, just to compensate for putting the hips in a contracted position. Because when you think about it, when you are sitting down, you are essentially contracting, you are in flexion. So you are contracting the hip flexors. And if you stay like this for hours and hours and hours, the muscles are going to get quite upset and quite tight, because they are essentially under tension the whole time. So obviously standing up from your desk and, stretching your hips and doing little movements like that will definitely help. But at the end of the day, go a little bit deeper with hip mobility, so then you can sleep better and you essentially remove all the tension that you've built up over the day. So that's mobility. The second one is strength. Okay. What happens a lot in people is that they have very weak glutes or underactive glutes. And that means that every time they need to move their leg, like either sit down on a chair or do a sport or any kind of physical activity, the small muscles, the hip flexors around the hip, are doing all the work while the big muscles are not. This leads to the small muscles being quite upset, overloaded, overworked, tight, and tense and stiff, and eventually they will blow up into an injury. For people to have joint replacements in their 60s and 70s, it's ridiculous because the lifespan of a human joint is 120 years. So if you are having a hip replacement, obviously not because of arthritis and other conditions or injuries, but if you are just having hip replacement because the joint is really deteriorated, then that is the way you are using your body, and essentially you're kind of causing it. So strengthening the area around the hips, specifically the glute and the ab muscles, will give you more of a chance of not getting hip replacements and also not having fractures when you are older. Because when people fall, often it's the hip bone that will take it. And once you break your hip, I've talked about this before, the outcomes are just horrendous, okay? So mobility and strength, really, two things. Now, do you need to go to the gym and start pumping weights and doing deadlifts? No, you don't need to. If you want to, totally go for it. You can do a whole bunch of exercises at home that will strengthen your glutes and give you super strong and super mobile hips. And so now we're going to get into those, okay? So what's really nice for hip mobility, but also starting to build up the strength in your hips, is the bridges. And this can be done against the wall as well. So I'm going to just run you through, because obviously I don't have a wall here right now. And I'm going to run you through it, yeah? So the simple bridges are literally just here. Now, this may seem like a really simple exercise, but trust me, it is really good. I still use it as a glute activation, and obviously it will take your hips through full range of motion, yeah? So here you are ideally completely straight, okay? If you want to make this exercise a little bit harder, then pop yourself against the wall and then have your legs at a right angle. So your thighs are perpendicular to the ground and your shins are parallel to the ground. Now, hook, obviously I have invisible wall here, and then you're just going to be lifting, yeah? So I'm just going to show you as if I had one, okay? And then you're just going to lift up, okay? So you're going to firmly plant your feet on the wall and then move up. You can do it also with both at the same time, or you can do it with a single leg against the wall, yeah? That will allow you to go a little bit deeper, and also it's a really lovely mobility for the thoracic spine too, okay? Now, mobility movements next. So if you've been in my world for a little while, you know that I'm a big fan of the shin box switch movement. And this movement has changed a lot of my clients' lives. The way you go into it is you are just going to fold your legs one way. Then you're going to come in the middle and you fold them the other way. Okay, so this is taking your hips through internal and external rotation. And this is a fantastic movement to start with. And see how you go. Observe how the hips are feeling on each side. Okay, it is totally normal to have one side tighter than the other. Okay, and then just see how you go. So just simple shin box switches. Nothing too complicated, but very effective, okay? If you've been sitting down for a while, or you have to sit down for work, you work at a computer, it's just what it is, or you have to drive a lot, then these movements at the end of the day or first thing in the morning will be fantastic. Now we're going to go into a shin box extension, yeah? Now I know that this one is quite challenging for a lot of people, okay? So there's a few hacks then I'm going to teach you to get into it if you can't do it on your own with ease, okay? Now note that the shin box extension is powered by the glute, but it's also strengthening the hip flexors, okay? So this is a mobility movement, but it is a bit of a cross between mobility movement and a bodyweight strength exercise, okay? And I'm going to also teach you how to load this exercise to make it into quite grunty strength exercise, okay? So if you can't do this, but this is what you should be aiming for, okay? This is really a reflection of the health of your hips, the mobility and the strength. You can kind of rock into it a little bit, okay? If that's still too difficult, then just use your hand and just push off, okay? And then you're just going to move side to side. I've got a quite small mat, so I'm just going to shimmy this way. Yeah, you're going to go side to side. I'm going to have to come off the mat a little bit. Yeah, go at your own speed. Go at any version that you can do right now, okay? If you need to rock into it, then do it. If you need to support yourself with your hand, then do that too. But if you can't do it just simply like this with strength and ease, then that is a real warning sign that you have missing range and missing strength in your hips, which is not that great. So work on it, okay? What you can also do with the shin box switch is to load it. So if you have any, you can use a rock in your garden, or you can use a dumbbell, you can use a kettlebell, you can use 2 filled up water bottles, any kind of weight, and then try the exercise with weight, okay? So that's again adding a little bit more load, and it is conditioning your hips to be stronger and more mobile under load, okay? Because sometimes we have to carry things and it will just really strengthen the hip flexors. So there's another option how to take it a little bit further, okay? If you have questions about any of these movements, please just comment. If you're watching it on YouTube, just pop a comment below. If you're watching it on Facebook, please just send me a comment. If you're watching on the replay, just go #replay and please ask your question and I will answer it later, okay? Now, I'm going to teach you this fun little routine that I've just put together, which is all about the hips, the glutes, and also the kind of the lower abs, yeah? So your hip flexors are quite kind of deeply connected to your pelvic floor and to your lower abs as well. So where you're going to start, you're going to just sit here. And this, I know that this is uncomfortable for some people, all right? Now from here, yeah, you can put your hands down on the floor and then you're going to lift each leg, yeah? This is surprisingly challenging, okay? From here, shimmy your hands a little bit more back and go into a tabletop, which I have coached many times before. If you don't have enough mobility in your wrists, just feel free to open them up, okay? Then you're going to go back here, lift, tabletop, yeah? Just a little mobility strength routine. Make sure you breathe. Go at any tempo that is good for you, okay? You can kind of lean into it a little bit if you want to hit the core, yeah? And keep going. Definitely add these to your routine. This is so good. I kind of feel like it's releasing something in the lower back as well. And this is really just highlighting just how connected your hips and your hip muscles and all the musculature here, which is layers and layers and layers of muscles, is all connected to your lower back as well, okay? So let's do a few more. Come and do it with me. This is a goodie. We'll get your strong core, strong lower abs, strong hip flexors. Let's just finish with one more, okay? So here you go. Here are just some really simple yet incredibly potent exercises. I mean, I'm amazed how every time people either do my free routines or jump into my programs, just how quickly they experience phenomenal results from just doing 5 to 10 minutes of mobility every single day, okay? So let's just recap what we learned today. So first of all, do you actually have issues with your hips, or do you just have issues with the muscles around the hips? And we've talked about that. If you've got the pain at the front, that's not great news, and you probably need to go and see your medical professional or anyone that you see. If you've got pain anywhere else, fantastic news, because that's just muscles and you can fix it yourself. The 2 things that will really move the needle on you kind of promoting and cultivating health, strength, and mobility in your hips are obviously mobility and then strength exercises. You need to do both. One without the other is just not useful. So I know people who lift weights at the gym. They can lift phenomenal amount of weight, yet they always have tight lower back and they have achy hips, okay? So you might be strong in your muscles and might be able to lift 1.5 times your body weight in weights, but if that's giving you tightness, stiffness, aches and pains in your hips and lower back, then you're not really actually strong, okay? Because you're clearly not cultivating the strength in your around the joint and in the connective tissue. Let's not forget about the connective tissue as well, the ligaments and the tendons, okay? Because that's usually where the injuries happen. And then you have a whole bunch of exercises that you can start doing from home, and do them every single day, okay? So if you have any questions, again, please ask. If you want some more hip exercises, I have either my 6-day free challenge, which has a whole hip section on it, or I have a 7 mobility movements for the hips too, which is a free routine that I'm happy to send to. So if you want any of these, just pop it in the comments and I will send it to you. And have a wonderful day. And here is to strong and healthy hips. Bye.